Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm Jess.
And I'm Lily.
And we are so excited to be here today because we're talking about something really fun and special. And it's not only going to be something new to you listeners, but it's going to be something new for me too. So Lily, you just got back from traveling in Arizona.
Yes.
And you were kind of giving me some little tidbits, but not really. And you were like, oh my God, the downloads, everything. So let's just dive into it. Like, tell us everything. What happened?
Yes. Okay. I've been so excited to tell you about this, but I wanted to do it for the podcast because I just feel like there are certain junction points in our spiritual journey that can be really helpful for other people to hear too and to be celebrated. And also, I was feeling in the month of July specifically that this was going to be a big time for me and that it was kind of important for me to be a little bit personal around this. And I think that comes up a lot in the spiritual journey where it's like when you go through big junction points or big pivots or like big like awakenings, sometimes it is a really personal process and it is kind of a solo thing. I do a yearly ahead card pull for each month. And my month of July was really big and expansive, but it was also an energy of being quiet, a little bit reserved, and just really going into my process. And so I'm really glad that I gave myself that space, but I'm also so excited to share everything because, wow, it was a really big leap for me and something that I don't regret in the least. So I guess I can just start at the beginning.
Yeah, or start with what drew you to Arizona specifically.
Oh, yes. Okay. Like the very beginning. We have to start
Yeah.
like at the very beginning because it's going to make so much more sense if we do it that way. You're right. Totally. So this all started last December. So pretty much as soon as the year 2023 started, a little bit before, like around Christmas time, I started getting these hints and all of these little messages around Arizona. And no offense to Arizona, but I've never been drawn to the southern states at all. Never been drawn to the desert. I know people love Sedona, but I was never into it. I was Pacific Northwest type of girl, mountains, pine trees. That's kind of my vibe. And so I was just like, this is so weird. like this is so strange. And, kind of resisted it for a while, but it got to the point where it was like every other person I was talking to was either coming from Arizona or going to Arizona or telling me about Arizona. And even when I met you, you were from Arizona. Like
Yeah.
you had just moved to Texas from Arizona, and you were just a little sign for me. But when I tell you that this was the most intense messaging of my life, it was the most intense messaging of my life. I'm intuitive. I'm an energy healer. I live that way in terms of working with the universe and, feeling into signs and receiving messages and things like that. But this level of communication and the directness of it and the consistency of it was something that I've never experienced. And just again and again for months on end. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to have to make a trip like randomly. I don't really know when to go, but I guess I'll just wait for the opportunity. And so it happened that I was going to go back to Pennsylvania, hang out with my family a little bit, and then we were going to go to Europe, which we did. Fantastic trip. And then on our way back, I was actually introduced to an app called Trusted House Sitters. I know you're familiar with that. Mm-hmm. This was another like little piece of the puzzle. This client actually reached out to me and was like, hey, I feel like this app would be really cool for you. And I was like, okay. I signed up, didn't really think anything of it. And then on my way back from Europe, I was just playing around on the app, seeing what was around in places that I thought were interesting. And I applied to one in Italy because I loved Italy. And I was like, I want to go back to Italy. And there was one that had just opened. So I was like, okay, why not? I applied. I got rejected in 10 minutes.
It's okay. I have gotten rejected from people on it too.
Like the guy didn't even say anything. Message
Yeah,
me,
that's
just
happened to me.
reject,
Yeah.
reject.
Don't
I'm
take
like,
it personal.
oh no, but it like it sparked something in me. I'm like, no, look, I want to be accepted by someone on this app.
Oh yeah,
And then
it's triggering.
yeah, and I'm just like, this guy didn't even give me an explanation. What the heck? And so I go and I'm looking in Arizona because I was like, clearly I'm supposed to go here. And I knew exactly the place that I was supposed to go to because I had been in a meditation and I had received a message on Flagstaff. Like that was the place for me to go specifically. I was seeing in a vision the map, seeing Flagstaff as the pinpoint, and I was just like, this is crazy, the amount of detailed specifics that I'm getting around this, basically this whole download in of itself. And so as I'm on the app, I'm looking at Flagstaff and there's a new opening that just came up because I had been kind of looking around before and it looked perfect. It's like, okay, I'll apply. It started the next week. She said yes within like 5 minutes. And she was like, thank goodness someone just pulled out. I was going to have to cancel my trip. This is really serendipitous that you applied. And I'm like, well, not really, because, all of this is orchestrated. Like at this point, I'm not really surprised. But, it was the next week. And so I just was like, okay, I'm going. It's happening. It's happening now. And I was also at a point in a couple other areas of my life where I felt like I really needed a retreat. I needed to like be by myself. And although I had just done all of this travel with family, there's a really big difference between going somewhere yourself versus going somewhere with the people you love, friends, family. There's just a different energy to it. Both are great experiences, but I just felt like I needed to be alone in this way. And so I booked it. I booked the train. I booked the train. I booked the plane. And I also booked the bus. I was like, okay, I'm open to this. This has been such a long time coming. After I booked the plane ticket, I felt like a relaxing of the messages, but still consistent. I was with my friend and in Philadelphia, and we was like parked in a parking garage, and the car next to us, Arizona plate. Just like little things like that, continuing to reinforce the decision. So I was feeling very, very supported, very supported. I never asked anyone else for their opinion because this was so clear for me. And I just kind of took a leap. And, there was some other things kind of going on, as I said, in some other areas of my life that I put on hold in order to really immerse myself in this experience.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I just love getting all the signs. I don't know for anyone. I'm still learning how to listen to the signs and see them. But also, I love what you said about you were like, I'm not even going to ask anyone about it. I'm just going to do it because that's also something that I'm stepping more into is just being like, okay, even if this seems illogical and doesn't really make sense, like I'm being guided here. And the more that you ask other people about it, the easier it is to get like talked out of it.
Definitely. Yeah. I kind of don't ask people in my life necessarily about opinions like this, but I do ask like my mentors and my energy healer that I've been working with for years, like, hey, running things by her. But like this, there was like no way that I was letting anyone else in on this process. I don't know how else to explain it. It was so mine. And it was like, there was no doubt in my heart, in my mind, in my soul. There was no doubt at all. And I was like, I don't care what this costs me. By the way, it cost me nothing. My plane ticket was paid for and my housing was also paid for. So I really stepped into that. And yeah, I appreciate you bringing that point because it's like when we're first starting out on this whole spiritual journey thing, it's like can be really helpful to have our intuition verified by another person because that's how we learn. It's like, oh wow, I was right. Like, oh, that intuition was correct. And that's really powerful to gain experience, I think. But then yeah, like there comes points and opportunities and times where the most expansive thing is to trust yourself unconditionally. And that's how I felt going into this trip.
Amazing. So obviously it was universally supported just with everything that you just mentioned. And then so what happened like once you got there?
Yeah. One other quick sign I'll tell you because it's kind of like funny. My parents got me this little journal for Christmas, I don't even know where my mom picked it up. She's like, yeah, like I just saw it somewhere. I got it for you. And it was a picture, like on it was a picture of the Grand Canyon. So we'll get to that. But I
Wait,
was just like,
you didn't
what?
go to the Grand Canyon, did you?
I did.
You did?
I did.
That's kind of
Yeah.
far from Flag.
It's like an hour and 20.
Oh, okay. That's not that bad. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm used to living in Phoenix, which is I always forget that's far from Flagstaff as well. So,
Yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
God, I had no idea that you went to the Grand Canyon. Okay, keep going.
Yes. That's like probably the juiciest part of the story, to be honest. So we'll get that. We'll get to that. But yeah, so when I opened that up on Christmas, I was just like, what do you know, Mom? Like what? I was like, my mom's in on this.
She's been conspiring with your guides.
I know. I'm just like, Mom, what do you know? And she of course didn't really know what I was talking about. She was just like, oh, like I just thought it was nice, you know, and that's like the way that the universe weaves things in through other people. So just incredible. So I go, I get there, I walk out of the airport and there's like 5 taxis and the number that you call for the taxi was 888-888-888-888. It was like 28s in a row as soon as I walked out. That for me is like a sign of abundance, ka-ching, like you're on the right path. And things like that just continued to confirm for me, even though I was not in a place where I even needed confirmation. I was just like really happy to be flowing and following. And I also was asking the earth, like I left Pennsylvania, about like why I was being called there. And the only thing that I was really getting, like feeling in my body, was follow the trail, just follow the trail. And that was like a thing that I felt like I needed to bring up in this episode, is that importance of following the trail of what lights you up, using your body to be your compass, being led by your body, not only by your guides. And so as I kind of settled into Flagstaff, it was like the most aligned living situation. I was living with 2 little puppies that were just amazing. There was chickens, there was a cat, and I was just so happy to be there. I was just like, oh my gosh, this feels so good to me. And even though it was like a hard thing, because as I mentioned, there were things that I had to put on pause and things that I had to step back from or away from in order to fully be present in that experience. It was like, although it was a hard thing, it was so right. And I continued to just kind of settle in to the space. And as I did, so many things from my childhood were popping up. For instance, she has a cello at her house, and I was a cello player my whole life growing up. And I loved it. And I put it aside for sports at like 7th grade or something. But I had played since I was like in 2nd grade or something like that, and was really good. And I loved it. And I practiced all the time. And when I saw the cello, like I hadn't seen the cello in the pictures, but when I saw the cello, I was like, wow. Like I felt that. And I made it a practice to play every day and remember what it feels like to, yeah, just be in that energy of playing the cello like I used to. And just the fact that there were chickens, I grew up with chickens. My brother and I took care of the chickens. We had ducks. And so it was like a lot of like little placements of things. I really manifested the cello because I had been really drawn to picking it up again in the months kind of leading up to Flag. And then when I arrived, I was like, okay, wow. Feeling that like small manifestation kind of land as you are on the path, it just feels so good. Like there's no way to like quite describe that.
Okay, and also a cello is not a very common instrument. If it was
Yeah.
like a piano, it's like, okay, yeah, a lot of people have pianos.
Yeah.
But like a cello,
Yeah. I know. It's like no one plays the cello.
no one
Like,
plays the cello. It's like, or the guitar. A lot of people play the guitar, but a cello, no.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like something so specific like that where like I haven't run into a cello
Right.
since I stopped playing 15 years ago.
I don't think I've ever run into a cello.
Yeah, unless you're like
life.
going to a music store. Like
Right.
I hadn't actually seen one, been able to touch one since I stopped playing.
Oh
And
my
like
gosh.
the fact that it was there, and every night that I remembered, I played it. And yeah, it was just like another little reclaiming, like a little like weaving energy that I was playing with as I was there.
That's
So
that's amazing. And it sounds like it was some inner child healing for you too.
yeah, yeah, I think so. It felt like a lot of like inner child, inner teenager stuff was coming up for me as I was there, like both in the way that the place was presenting those things to me, but also with the things that I was stumbling across. I'll get into the gene keys and how I really dove into them for the first time ever. But yeah, I think you're right. And I know that I've also had clients who have been like working through a lot of like inner teenager, like inner child stuff. So I think maybe it's a collective energy, maybe.
Me too, actually. A lot of, well, I told you before this, I've been doing a lot of shadow work, and a lot of it has been my teenage years
Mm-hmm.
and like late elementary school, middle school too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting that you're noticing that pattern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the teenager thing, I think, is like something that people forget about when they think about inner child work, but it's just as important.
That's where like most of my wounding has come from, was my teenage
Mhm.
years.
Yeah. So yeah, that was coming up for me in like small areas and things that I've still haven't, signs that are like so consistent still that I haven't quite landed yet. There are things from my time there that are still clicking into place. It's very interesting. And especially around the inner child, like inner teenager stuff that is still unwinding even now. And I've been home for about a week.
Yeah, and like
So
still integrating.
yes. Yeah. It's funny because I felt like doing the podcast today felt really aligned because at this point I have like, integrated a lot and that there's like kind of like a new thing starting soon for me. And to do it like any later would have been kind of like pulling on the past. I've been feeling a lot into timing of things. If you're listening and you've been in a situation where you have like a big expansion, like the one that I've kind of described, like giving yourself that integration time and then like allowing space to celebrate it and and be witnessed in it so that you can actually, move on. That can be important part of the process.
It's so important. And it's like, even, I mean, I hope you're okay with me sharing this, but it's like we were supposed to record yesterday and you were like, I'm still integrating some stuff. Like I energetically, I can't. And I'm like, yeah, that's 100% understandable. And the more that we can approach, luckily we have the freedom to approach that with our podcast because we make the rules, but the more and more that we can approach life in that way, I mean, that's like the new way of being and doing things. And it really is, it shouldn't be so frowned upon to like when you energetically don't feel like you can show up to cancel a meeting or postpone something. And it honestly usually works out better for the other parties involved because once you said that to me, I was like, actually, I don't feel well either. I was doing a lot of shadow stuff yesterday and I was like, I'm unwell. I don't feel like I can show up either. And it ended up working out way better.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so true. Sometimes it's hard to be the one to be like, hey, it's not aligned and, hope that it's not putting the other person out or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like exactly what you're saying. It's definitely the new way to, and like, yeah, we have the freedom to do this because this is our podcast, but it's definitely the new way when it comes to alignment overall and creating in a way that actually feels authentic and true versus, trying to force or push. Because yeah, you're right. Like yesterday, when we were going to record, every time that I thought of talking about Arizona, it wasn't like I couldn't be in it. I felt like I could talk about it, and yet my heart and my soul wasn't present with it. And that was because I had been kind of moving through some things in the wake of Arizona, like the aftermath of the decisions that I made. And sometimes the decisions that you make when you make a big leap, sometimes there are other people involved. And sometimes that needs to be addressed and taken care of after your time. And so that's what I was doing, allowing for space to reconnect with different people and different parts of my life after I had taken that time by myself. So the integration is definitely a huge part of it and totally necessary.
Yeah. And if you're listening and you're like, well, I have a corporate job or like I don't dictate my schedule when it comes to work, it's like, okay, that's one thing, but you can definitely start applying it in your personal life, when you have plans with friends or family. And if you're like, I am not good today, then reschedule.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely. I've learned so much around this, especially with my health journey and being true to that while also being aligned with what feels expansive for me. I've had so much practice with that and continue to have practice with that of really honoring my body and yet also empowering myself. And I think it's a fine line, but something that everyone has the opportunity to learn, whatever limitations you feel, whether that's a people pleasing tendency or your body is healing and you're trying to honor that while also stepping into your expansiveness. There's a dance, and it's definitely a skill that we are learning.
it is a skill. And it's something like, even for me this week, because I've been doing reformer Pilates as my main form of exercise, and I pay a lot for the membership. And this whole entire week, my body was like, no, absolutely not. And my mind kept going like, we need to go, we need to go. Literally, my body was like, no, we're not doing it this week. And it was not easy. I was like, oh my gosh, but I'm paying so much for it. Like then I'm not going to work out and blah, blah, blah. Like just going through all these like narratives in my head. And then anyways, I was guided to a dance class yesterday, and just my body was like, we want other things this week. And it's just like,
Yeah,
sometimes you just have to listen.
definitely. Oh my
So,
gosh, I can totally relate to that. When I was in Arizona, I was getting this hit to run. And the way that I said that, my face was just like, what? If you're watching the video. But I was so surprised because I haven't run in so long. I used to be a runner. As I kind of alluded to, I had a health journey. My body for a long time really wanted Pilates, like you're saying, more like flowing movement or walks and things like that. But I was getting like this really strong, like to run. And so I just started doing it. I wasn't doing 4 mile runs, but I was running again. And that's something that I always wanted to get back into, but something that I just never really had the push to do it. I had an overnight healing situation happen in my dreams while I was there in Arizona. It was like a big heart expansion. And the way that my intuition works in my dreams is sometimes I'll have lines that I read or kind of like a voice in my head, like things like that that kind of narrate what I'm seeing in my third eye dream space. And that was just the message that your heart is so open right now. Don't walk, run. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
okay, all right. And then yeah, I was out in nature and felt the message come in again of like, you need to run. And what I kind of realized is that my energy has changed so much over my time in Arizona. And maybe you're kind of like rolling your eyes right now. I would understand if you were, because it's kind of like, oh, I was there for 16 days. How could everything change? But energetically, everything can change in that amount of time. And I truly did transcend in my energy. My energy did definitely change. And it almost felt like the running was almost like lymphatic drainage. I was also like feeling like I just needed to massage my energy body, move it and stretch it. And running is something that I haven't done in a long time. And usually when we're going through big upgrades, we can be guided or feel the urge to do some things that we haven't done in a long time because it's a new movement in the body. So it's like your body is learning something new while your energy is recalibrating to a new frequency. So it's like newness on all levels.
Oh my God. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That just hit for me because I took a contemporary dance class last night, which I haven't taken in years. And I was a dancer growing up. And like, I'm moving through a lot of shadow stuff. And yesterday I had a breakthrough, and then I went and moved my body in that way. And it was challenging, but it felt so nourishing.
Mm.
So what you just said just like hit for me.
Were you doing that kind of movement when you were that age that you were working on your shadow? Does that make sense?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
It was like, It was like, yeah, well, so a lot of what came up in my shadow work was actually my fear of self-expression and how fearful I was because I was having a lot of anxiety before the class. So I went and I did a meditation that like brought me deeper into my subconscious and had all of these memories come up from when I was a dancer and like remembering how terrified I was anytime the spotlight was on me. I had completely forgotten about all of this. And
Wow.
and then I was brought back to this moment in elementary school of something that happened at school outside of dance. And it was around my self-expression. And that was the root of the core wound. And it like came up and I was like, whoa. And then I felt it like releasing in my body. And I was already signed up for the dance class and I was sitting downstairs trying to relax and watch TV because I had been doing shadow work and stuff like all day. And then I got the ping of like, no, you need to go meditate. You need to go meditate. Do it, do it, do it. And I was like, okay, so I turn off the TV, I go upstairs, turn on a specific meditation and was brought through all of that. And it was like a fucking journey. And I was like,
Wow.
oh my God. And then I was like, wow. And then I went to the class and I was so confident, even though I hadn't done this type of dance in years. And there were people who were dancers there that were really experienced, you know?
Wow.
What just came through for you?
It was just like you did it on the energetic level. And then it was just like, but you have to do it on the physical level too. You have to embody it. And
Yeah.
it's just like, oh my God, you did all of that in one day. I'm just getting chills.
No, I know. I am too. Like I literally had a breakthrough and I didn't even know I needed it. And it was so crazy. And I don't know. It was just very cool that I was able to get to the root of it before going into the class and then it just made the experience in the class so much better. And it made me feel like, okay, you know what? I don't have to be perfect at this. And I just I'm just going to have fun. And that's exactly what I did. And I was so proud of myself afterwards. And I just feel like I feel like I had an energetic upgrade.
Oh, definitely.
Crazy.
No doubt there. Yeah, and I love how you said that because there's such a misconception when it comes to this kind of work that you can do everything in meditation and that's that. But we are physical people.
Oh,
And
such a good point.
this is a thing, like something that I really learned in Arizona, embodied more of it in Arizona, although like I knew this. We can do all this energetic work. We can do all of the stuff in the astral and in all of the realms. We can do all of the meditation. But at the end of the day, the only thing that really matters is whether you're able to embody that new frequency. And if you're not, then you can meditate until you're blue in the face and your life isn't going to change. You need to not only heal the energetic pattern, but then act from that. And for you in this situation, that is such a perfect way to show people on this podcast you're listening, where it's like, what does it actually mean to heal? It's not just the energetics, it's not just the meditation, although that's important and you can't skip that. The next level is the embodiment. And you going back to that dance class and literally reprogramming and retraining your body in that exact form of expression, recoding your physical body after you recoded your mental and energetic space is just like, oh my God. Like,
Wow.
it's just like that is the key. And like, that is the whole cake, that's the whole thing.
It's so true. And there were things that I was almost letting get in the way. Like it was an intermediate class. And I was like, oh, well, I don't feel like I should take an intermediate class because I haven't done it in so long. And then I was like, one of my friends who's I met through a different style of dance was like, just go, like, who cares? And I was like, yeah, you know what? If I don't get it down, whatever. And so it's not to say that I didn't feel challenged beforehand. And I had to move through a lot of like my ego trying to keep me out of it. And I was just like, I'm just going to fucking do it. Anyways.
So amazing.
Okay, cool. So we're both, it's just so crazy how this all like can intertwine in our lives.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
So you ran in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And then what else came through? You said you had a lot of downloads and stuff.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was one of those things where I literally just I felt like I couldn't even really talk to anyone. It was like every moment was a download. I just like I didn't know what to do with myself. I wasn't really talking to anyone and I was like just off. Like I felt like I was off the grid. I really felt like I was like out there, but I wasn't. I was in a city, but I just I felt alone and I felt like I actually had the space for all these things to start dropping. And it was just like one thing after another, like things about my relationship, things about my career, my spiritual journey, all of these things from all different areas of my life started to just come in like rapid fire. It was like I had to keep going in it. And part of me wanted to be like, whoa, slow down. But I felt like I had to keep pace. I don't know how to describe it. It felt like all of this needed to happen then. And it was like I needed to keep pace with it. And there was like a lot of learning for me during this time. And it felt like very aligned learning. It felt like that was like part of it. Like I needed to keep pace by like keep learning things, which is not always the path for me. I'm a 3/5, so a lot of it is like with experimentation, but more so during this time was like a lot of learning, and the gene keys came in really strong for me. I had bought a class called Wild Beauty from Kelly Rowland. I bought that class, didn't watch the replay. But then in Arizona, I was like, I need to watch the replay. And I watched the replay and she talked about gene key number 1, beauty. And I was like, this is interesting, this whole like gene key thing. And then it popped up again on my Instagram where I wanted to do a music clip for a story. And the gene keys popped up. I'm getting chills. I sat on this rock and I listened to 20 minutes of gene key number 8, exquisiteness. I honestly was just crying and crying. It was hitting really deep levels for me around my self-expression and also my career path and like my motivations for doing what I'm doing. And there has been a disconnect that I felt of, okay, why am I following this alternative, quote unquote, alternative path when it comes to my business? Is it because I want to be a business owner? Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And that's something that's always been core to me, is why am I doing what I'm doing? And this gene key, it just obliterated me. Like I felt like my body was like opening. So the gene keys, if you're not aware, is a system similar to human design, but the gene keys are, I would say, even more in depth and a little bit different as well. You have a chart and then you have, I think it's like 5 or 6 keys defined in your chart, but everyone has all the keys within them, but there's like 5 to 6 that you have defined. And there's this sequence within the keys called the Venus sequence. And it is a sequence that is basically a form of unlocking the heart. And it is around looking at these, I think there's like 3 parts of it, where it's like ages 0 to 7, ages 7 to 14, ages 14 to 21, and then kind of spirals into the rest of the chart from there. And gene key 8 for me was my 7 to 14 key, or like my 14 to 21 key. I can't remember the age that one clocked in. That one just blew me open. And from there, it was like, okay, I'm like building a new foundation. Like I really felt like I was building a new foundation for why I am doing my business, for why I am making the choices that I am. And it unlocked a big thing that I've felt in the spiritual space of imitation. Such a beautiful message that he shared, where it was like, the shadow of gene key 8 is being within the masses, being the person who just gets by, who doesn't add anything to the collective, who's at a maintenance level of being, who doesn't really have the courage to be authentic to themselves. And then when we get to, so there's a shadow, and then there's the gift, and then there's the city, which is the highest expression. And then at the gift level, we have the people who are not afraid to be themselves and who are, taking the path less traveled. And what I'm just like getting chills because it's just like so good. But what he describes is we have this whole new alternative lifestyle that has come up in the West, especially like, California, where the alternative lifestyle is now the new suburbia. And it's like, why are you living this alternative lifestyle? Because you want people to see you living the alternative lifestyle? Or is it because it's your calling? Why are you doing it? And for me, that was like, oh my gosh, that is the most important thing. And my favorite kind of quote from him was, would you give up your alternative lifestyle if the calling came? And I think that is like so discerning between people who are actually following their calling and the people who are actually just following into another form of imitation, of following the trend, following what, is cool. And you may think that you've kind of escaped that because you're a traveler or a seeker or a nomad or XYZ. You have this kind of like pocket of creativity that you're honing in on, but it's like the energy of that, like, where is that coming from? Gene Key 8 in Arizona was just like one of my huge moments. And from there, discovering more pieces of my chart, especially different aspects of not just my Venus sequence, but also my personality within the chart, was a huge thing.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
So if you don't mind sharing, can you go deeper into what was your realization around your why with your business?
Mm-hmm. This was actually coming up with a business coach that I was thinking about working with. She was like, she's also an intuitive and a psychic. And she was like, I'm feeling like the why to your business is what we need to settle first. Cause there's like part of your soul, like part of your being that is uncertain. And I can never fully commit to something unless it's like authentic, number one. And it's like coming from me. And there's a piece of the space when it comes to spirituality that is so imitative. And that is something that has really been challenging for me to navigate within having a business.
Same. I mean, like, full disclosure, that's why I let mine go. And I've kind of alluded to this when we were talking about human design. I was like, I am literally just seeing what other people are doing and copying it. And that's why my business isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I had to like be really fucking real with myself and be like, this is not it for me. This is how other people are doing it. And this is the only way that I know how it can be done. And I'm still in this influx, but I resonate so deeply with that. Like, you are so not alone in feeling that, as someone who has been an entrepreneur in the spiritual space, because there is so much imitative energy. And I'm still in the process of finding clarity of what is my authenticity in how I express and how I show up and how I'm meant to serve. Cause, like, full disclosure, I don't have the answers to all of that yet. And I'm still in the process of discovering, but hats off to you for even really acknowledging that and seeing that for yourself too.
Yeah, thanks for that. I do my absolute best to be true to myself, and yet Gene Key 8 is defined in my chart. I know that I have that shadow, and I know that that's something that I have to work through, and I know that's something I need to be aware of. And for me, it's like a very small, subtle shadow of, what will this portray, or what does this say about me? What does what I share say about me? Something that he said so brilliantly. You guys got to listen to it because it's so good. He was talking about rebels. Okay. And I've been like quite rebellious as a kid. And he's like, maybe you're rebellious and that's your thing. And like, I'm butchering this because he says it so eloquently, but he says, maybe your identity is that you don't care what people think, but you do care because you want people to think that you don't care. And it's just like, fuck, like, you gotta like travel it back. If you want people to think that you don't care what they think, you care what they think. And the brilliant piece of this key is that it's all fueled by a fear of being mediocre, of being seen as mediocre.
Oh,
And
no.
so it's this reaction to being mediocre. And so now we see people being unhinged. Like, are they really unhinged? Or are they
Like
trying to
unhinged,
be unhinged?
unhinged in what way? Like they're like wild or what?
I feel like there's this whole unhinged culture coming out. I don't know if you've seen this whole like, I'm being unhinged. And it's like, oh. And
Laughing at
it's
what
like,
you're saying.
okay,
It
like
is
if
so
you're
funny.
actually unhinged, like, okay, but
Don't
it's
need to
like,
say it.
yeah,
I don't even understand. Like to me, when I think about that, I'm like, okay, are they like going out in public naked or like what does this mean?
I don't know, but it's almost just trying to be even like more like obscene, even more like erotic, just upping the ante of being shocking. And like the beauty of the key is that it's not judgmental. It's just where is it coming from? What is the foundation of why you're doing what you're doing? That is what really like hit just so deeply for me.
No, and it's such a good point that you bring up. And it alludes to like even just in the spiritual space of what it means to be spiritual, which you and I have talked about so many times on and off camera of like, it's just it like there is no one way of being spiritual. And I think that for me, I went super when I first had my awakening, I went super into like, oh, I have to be into all of this alternative stuff. Like I can't be a normie. Like, and now I've just been like, there's a little aspects of my life that I'm like, who fucking cares? I'm done trying to be something that I'm not. Like, for instance, I used to use all natural laundry detergent or not laundry detergent. I do use that, but dishwashing soap, like for the dishwasher, and it doesn't work. And I recently switched to Cascade and it works like a fucking charm. And I literally was like,
Dying.
dude, like that's just the smallest example, but I am like,
Yeah.
yeah, I am using toxic dishwasher soap because you want to know why? It leaves my dishes spotless. Okay. And I am still spiritual.
Yeah, even though you use the cascade.
Right.
Yeah.
And I will never go back. I will never go back.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we could talk about all of that. I feel like we should talk about
That's like
that.
a
Like,
whole tangent. That could be a whole nother episode.
yeah, when we talk about like the spiritual space and like just being spiritual, the next step is just being yourself. And that's the most spiritual thing that you can do. And just being true to like what you want to use for your
Yeah.
dishes.
Like I want my life to be easier. I want my dishes to be clean. So
Yeah.
anyways, so the gene keys, you had this really crazy in-depth, like that was like so valuable. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. It brought up a lot in me. I'm sure it's going to bring a lot up in listeners as well. So then what happened? Can you share about your Grand Canyon experiences? Was this at the Grand Canyon that you had these revelations or was this
No.
separate?
So
Oh
this,
man.
yeah, so this was in Flagstaff. Most of my time I spent in Flag and was just integrating all of these things. I like was definitely connecting a lot intuitively day after day. I wanted to take two trips. So I took a trip to Sedona and then I also took a trip to the canyon. And back when I was getting all the messages around it, the canyon was like a really big anchor. And at first, it was almost like, where is closest to the canyon that I can stay? And then I kind of forgot about the canyon because Arizona seemed to be more of the thing. But then as I was planning the canyon trip, I was like, wow, this is actually a huge part of why I came here. And so I went to Sedona. I had an interesting experience there. Definitely big energy. We talked about this on one of the groups that we're in, you and I, about the importance of protection around vortexes like that. So I really recommend that to anyone going. Energetic protection for sure. But even when I was in Sedona, I had clicking moments. Like things were like clicking and clicking. I was walking up to the summit and a card that my friend had pulled for me back in December, it said vast vistas. And it was a person sitting on a rock, seeing like this huge vista out in front of them. And as I was climbing up, I was just like, vast vistas. Oh my gosh. Little things like that I've been getting like the signs like started to weave in and connect. And it's just all these beautiful little, yeah, just like the big tapestry coming in, which was amazing. And I also was kind of getting to the point where I was like, okay, I've had all of these downloads here in Arizona. Like, wow, this has been transformative, but is there another reason why I'm here? And in Sedona, I asked that from earth consciousness, that kind of connection came because you're a traveler. And that kind of started to click in as we started diving into our group that we're in around grid working. Jess and I are like part of a group that has been really expansive, I think, for both of us. We can maybe do like an episode around what the grid working really is for both of us. But as I was there, I was like, okay, like this part of my mission is starting to click into place for sure. This is a big part for me. This working with the grids, working with nature in this way of not just around my home, but in travel aspects too. And then the following day, I went to the canyon, and this is where I'm just getting huge chills. This is where things got wild. Like, this is where things got crazy. So, oh gosh, my throat chakra right now.
It's like on fire.
I'm like, wow, okay. So I get to the canyon. It starts pouring down rain. Okay. First of all, when does it rain in Arizona? Like, is that a thing? I get there. It's pouring down rain. I had pulled one card before I went. I was like, is there anything I need to know about this trip? And I got the porcupine spirit from the animal spirit card deck. And I'm going to share a little bit more about that because the porcupine came in. So I get there, it's pouring down rain, whatever. I'm like, all right, I'll hop on a bus. I get on a bus. I like go to the farthest point on the South Rim, which is called Bright Angels Landing or Bright Angel Trail. And I was like, okay, I want to go on the trail. Like, this is like Bright Angel. I'd seen the name Angel as I was driving there. I was like, maybe I'm supposed to be on this trail, like following the signs. So I start on this trail and I start feeling like shit. I'm just like, I hate this trail. I'm diving into the canyon. So this trail is the trail that zigzags down into the canyon. It's a pretty like legitimate trail. There's all these signs around like, make sure you know what you're doing on this trail. It's legit. So I'm going down and my body's just resisting it. It's just like, we don't want to be here. I start getting lightheaded. I start feeling like I used to feel when I was on trips that I didn't want to be on. Like, my body was just like, ugh, like my brain was like fuzzy. I felt disconnected from my body. I felt lightheaded. Things were just not feeling good for me. Finally, but the thing was, it was beautiful. I was like, I should do this, all of this dialogue. I'm also one to always finish a trail, like to a fault. I'm like, I'm finishing the trail. But I was like, I can't. My body says no. I sat down, I sit on this rock. I'm just like, okay, I'm turning around. I only went probably like 15 minutes down into the canyon. So I was like, fine, I'm just going to turn around because what I really want to do is the rim trail. So I go back up. As soon as I turn around, my body like comes back online and it's just like, yes, yes, yes. And so I'm just like going like up to the top and I'm like hitting the rim and all this energy. I'm like, where did this come from? This is just a testament to really, really listening to your body. It's a huge indicator of right direction versus not. So I start getting on the rim and I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. But like my mind, and I share this because I know that if you're listening to this, you're probably having similar things happen to you. But my mind is like, this is an easy trail. Shouldn't I be somewhere more remote if I'm going to like connect with this space spiritually? Shouldn't I be doing, this doesn't make sense. This is where everyone goes. It wasn't very touristy because it was pouring down rain. The rain had kind of passed. It was like coming in spurts. But I just kind of ignored it. And I was just like, whatever, this is what feels good. This is where I feel like I should be. And so I get on the rim. And if you've ever been to the Grand Canyon, it's very nice. They have it set up so well. There's stops along the way where you can look into the history of different things. And I ended up stopping at this Native American spot. And it was like all about the spirits of the animals and what they mean. And I looked at this porcupine spirit and it was like, warning for bad weather. I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, it was just like funny. You know what I mean? It's just like touche. And then I'm like continuing on. It's like a 3-mile trail. And I'm just taking my time, stopping where I feel like I need to. There's no rails on the side. So like you can get like really up to the edge. And I stopped on a rock outcrop and it started to get kind of rainy again. And I was just like, oh no, like, oh no, because I'm like exposed, you know, and the thunder is like starting. It's like boom, like loud, like so loud. And then it starts hailing. Like it literally starts hailing.
Ouch.
Yeah. I'm getting pelted by hail. People are like running into the trees. If you've ever been to the Grand Canyon, when I say trees, there are these like scrawny little shrubs. There's not like these big trees. People are like taking cover under these little trees. I'm like burrowing myself under this tree. And while I was there, you know, getting hailed on, I was like, well, I might as well connect. And so I do connect. And I'm like, why do I need to follow the rim? And it was like, you're following the river.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So the day before on our call, this is like a good working group that we're in that we're loving. And well, I'm loving, but I think you're loving it too.
Oh yeah, I am.
Okay. Our guide for the group had told me that my frequency had built itself into the river system where I live in Idaho, northern Idaho. And it had flowed down like through Washington, through southern Idaho, and it had met up with the Colorado River. The Colorado River turns and comes into Arizona. I had not put it together that the Colorado River is what formed the Grand Canyon. And so I'm like, I'm like in one of those moods where like everyone who sees you is just like, whoa, her energy right now. Like I tell like people were staring at me. I just felt like I was radiating. I was just like so on purpose, so on trail. My energy is just flowing. And if I would have forced myself to go down that Bright Angel Trail, I never would have completed this mission that my soul has been working on for like 5 years that I've been here. I was being pulled to Arizona to meet myself, to meet myself at the river.
Oh my.
And so, yeah, I'm like starting to feel sweaty. So now I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing. But the thing is, I couldn't see the river yet. And so I'm like following the trail. I'm following the trail. And through this whole process of going on this trail, it's talking about the geology of the rocks and like how this area was formed. And I am a geology major for my undergraduate. And so I'm realizing like all these things that I know when it comes to building the earth. And then another message comes through where it's like, it was so important for me to have that undergraduate to understand how the earth is built because I'm a part of building the new earth. I'm like, I know. This is where things got wild.
I'm
And
getting
then
full body chills right now.
yeah, yes. And something that came through in Arizona as well is that Capricorns are building the new earth. And my business is a Capricorn, like my business astrology. So I'm like, okay, all of these things are clicking. I feel like on another level at this point. The time even feels different. In our meditation the night before, we had been asked to connect with a plant or a flower that was going to help us on our journey when it comes to working the grids and like being connected to the earth and having a relationship with Mother Nature. And I had seen this like small golden orange flower that I had never seen before. And I didn't know what it was. As I was on the trail, I saw it. It wasn't just that I saw the flower and a description of it. And so I learned the name and I also learned about the flower and was able to connect with that plant. And then as I'm approaching the end of the geology walk, it was called the walk I was on was called A Walk Through Time. And I had started like I know.
You have all these, what is up with all these epic names that they have?
I know. Well, so like every step that you took was supposed to be equivalent to 1,000,000 years. Yeah. So like you're literally walking through time. And like I felt like I was metaphorically walking through time as well. And so as I get to the present day, I start at the end, like the farthest back. And as I get to the present day, I'm finally able to see the Colorado River. And as I see it, I just feel this star just like anchoring down. And I'm just like, I did it. Like I did it. And then I go into the little observation. And like, you're not going to believe this, but there was a huge sign and it said, looking back at you. Like looking back at yourself. I was blown away, blown out of the water. I was just like, wow, whatever this was, like I just did it. And I was just so proud of myself.
So was it like looking back at you like you were the river? Like you're in the river? Yeah.
It felt like it was just like how my energy had woven into the river system and I had like met my own energy. I had like completed the circle. And I was getting a lot of like circular messaging and imagery as well, like circle of life, circle of animals, and just like feeling I had met my energy that had been traveling and I had like connected with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the only thing I can describe.
Wow. I feel that like right now I'm feeling a very like relaxed energy. Like I don't know, like it almost feels like how I feel when you give me energy healing.
Yeah.
Like my nervous system, just when you were telling that story, my nervous system just really like calmed down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
I love your what's it called? Clairsentience. Yeah.
that's feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that's definitely how things come through for me. Oh my gosh, that is such a beautiful story. Can you also share the download that you had about Sedona?
Oh, yes, I forgot about that. I think there's like some pressure when you're going to vortexes like this to like make it a really spiritual experience. But what I can tell you is like as long as you are following what your body is telling you, as long as you are just following your intuition, like you cannot get it wrong. And I think that this whole episode is a tribute to that. I had no idea what I was doing. Like I did not know why I was going where I was going, but had no doubt when I was being led in different ways and when my body was communicating with me. But when I did get to Sedona, I connected, and the first thing that came through was mermaids singing, underwater activity, Lemuria kind of vibes. And I almost dismissed it as wrong. And then I was like, okay, maybe this place was underwater. There's such a mermaid energy here. And as I was walking along, I looked over the side of the trail and I saw a rock formation that was very clearly, and again, tribute to my knowledge when it comes to like my undergraduate degree, I could tell that the water that rock had been underwater. The way that it is formed and like the way that it looked, like you could tell that it had been weathered by water and it had been underwater like for a long time. And so it was the download and then me being able to identify that as a geology major and as someone that studied rocks for a long time. It was just kind of incredible. And then I was telling you about it. We were like texting about this. And I was like, I guess I should look it up. Like I might as well. And then I looked it up and it was very true. Sedona was underwater.
Sedona was in fact underwater.
Mm-hmm.
That is when you sent me that, like the thing online when it was like Sedona was underwater, I was literally like, what the
I know, because I was in the desert and I'm just like, this has to be wrong.
yeah, like what? Getting mermaid vibes when you're like in the middle of a desert, there's no water. I mean, obviously there's the river, but there's no like oceanic bodies of water around you.
Exactly.
That's just
crazy.
Just the beauty of intuitive work, and like you're so open and so gifted, and it's so cool. That was so cool when I heard that. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah, I definitely opened up a lot through Arizona, more than like I ever have been. And so that's like another thing when you do take a leap and follow what you feel like is actually true and what you need to be doing. It's like there's always something that comes out of that. And for me, part of that was definitely my intuition has continued to open up more and more.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. I literally feel like I just had energy work done. Like,
We
like,
probably did,
like
honestly.
I'm not exaggerating. It's like I like feel very relaxed.
Yeah. After I felt like it had been complete, the urgency is gone. You know, it's like when you complete anything where it's like, okay, it's finished. Not to say that my journey is finished, but that portion needed to be done. And I'm just getting so many chills right now just saying that.
Yeah, because you were being called there for so long. And then finally you were like, all right, I'm doing it.
Yeah. I mean, it took me, yeah, like 6 months to go,
Yeah. But you did.
but I did.
Wow. That was nuts.
Yeah, it really was. I honestly just couldn't wait to tell you. I was just like, I can't wait to share this on the podcast. And one of the things I want to do is just be a leader for people in that way of just really trusting themselves.
Absolutely. And like you're doing it. I'm still learning how to do it. This is a very good, you're inspiring me to do
Mm.
so as well, because there are some places that, well, there's one place that I've been feeling called and I've been like, oh, but like now's not a good time and like blah, blah, blah. Anyways, you know, the ego. Okay. So is there anything else that you feel like wants to come through around this?
I did tune in before, so let me just check my notes. Basically, like the big things that need to land for people, I think, with this episode is following the trail and using your body to follow the trail, not necessarily your mind. Like, this is like a new way. And bravery when it comes to these kinds of things, and really being okay with embracing change. So,
Mm,
like, those kind of like three messages and leaning into your design, your astrology, whatever like feels good to you. I have a lot of fire in my chart, like I'm an Aries, and like leaning into those personality traits when you are getting ready to make moves can be that little extra thing that you need to take the leap.
that's good. That's really good. Do you feel like the body thing is more like because you're a generator and I'm a manifesting generator, and do you feel like that's more generators speak, or do you feel like that's applicable to everyone?
I really do think it's typical to everyone, but I would say especially with us, with the generator kind of population, you're really built to follow that. But I do think that bodily communication is universal to everyone. It's just, how does that look like to you? It might not be for a reflector, a feeling of desire and pull and like juiciness. It might not feel that way, but you, as a reflector, like you are constantly in tune with your body, whether or not like you're consciously aware of that. So yeah, I really do think that it applies to everyone. I think that we tend to talk to groups of people who are kind of like us because we attract that. And so if you're listening to this, I would say that there's something about my energy, something about Jess's energy, like we're both fire signs that is pulling you. And so just trusting that and leaning into your body.
Yeah, it's such a good point. The body
Yeah.
is huge. It's been a big part of my journey as well.
Yeah.
Wow, that was amazing. Also, there's like an orb. It looks like an orb in the upper left hand or something in the upper left hand corner behind you. It's like a red.
I see that now.
It wasn't there before.
Weird.
Yeah, it like just popped in like I don't know. Well, I just noticed it like maybe 5 minutes ago. I don't know. But
Hmm.
red.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm wearing a lot of red right now because this is like how I felt. This dress was very Arizona to me. So I went to,
Grounded.
yeah. I've been feeling a lot of root chakra stuff today.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Wow. Okay. So thank you so much for sharing all of this. I got like so much out of this. I'm just like I'm excited to see what listeners are going to think. So for anyone listening, let us know. Reach out to us on Instagram. And also if you felt anything from the show, if it resonated with you, we would love if you could leave us a review. That always helps, and share it with a friend.
Yes, please do. And thank you for sharing the space with me, giving me the opportunity to share this part of my journey in life. It means a lot to me to have this space.
What it's here for.
Yeah. But yeah, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We love to hear from you, and we will see you in the next episode.